So let's talk about Lions player ratings in this Reds game. 12.52 the Lions won. Opened up quite a lot towards the end as the Reds started to fade a little bit, and I really focused on the individual players. Of course I watched the whole game, but I was focusing on individual performances so I can give my best shot at player ratings and talking about what each individual player did in the game as they fight, of course, for these test spots. And as I go through the ratings, I'll talk about incidents in the game as well, so it'll kind of relate back to the game. But please let me know what you think, because it's just one person's view here. I'd love to know what you think and why. Starting off with the front row, I thought it was so-so for the front row, actually. The Reds front row, the starting front row, was very strong. A couple of them have all black caps, and yeah, they struggled a little bit. I think Porter maybe was quite strong in the scrum compared to Stewart, and he scored his try, of course, although he did have a good latch there as well. Stewart was a little disappointing, I thought, and these ratings are kind of related to how they should perform if they're going to be a test Lion. Kelleher, again, was so-so, not the absolute best. I mean, they are fighting to be number 2 behind Sheehan, and then when Cowan Dickey came on, he added a lot of energy. Of course, the Reds were fading at that point as well, so that's worth bearing in mind. So let's talk about some specifics from the game, and early on, Porter and Stewart together missed a double tackle on Paisami, which was pretty poor, and that led to a try, actually, for Tumunga Allen. Andrew Porter did concede the second penalty, I think, in the scrum, but generally, he was pretty solid in the scrum apart from that. And he'll be happier with the second score, of course, because he scored it from close range, but did have a big shunt from 2 players behind him. So it's interesting to know how he's rated. They did get a good shunt in the scrum before half-time, but overall, so-so, I'd say. Porter may be the best of the front row, but I don't think any of them made a massive statement. For Kelleher, his first throw was read by the Reds, but maybe Itoje shouldn't have called it to the back. He's a good low tackler. I do like his low tackling, as does Jack Morgan. He makes those low tackles, which I really like. On the whole, the line-out, the attacking line-out was okay. Still an area of concern, I think, and it's not all the hooker's fault, but still not good optics. Stewart, first scrum, penalised for driving in on the angle. On 24 minutes, the Lions were going through a good defensive set until Stewart flopped on the floor, but still played the ball, so gifted a few penalties there. And then he spills short of the line off Aki, and the Lions were building quite nicely and his hands weren't up. Maybe he thought he was the decoy, but he was kind of in the way. So there are a few things I picked out there that weren't the best. Then onto the second rows, and maybe it was a masterstroke for Farrell to leave out Itoje from that first tour game, as he came back absolutely roaring. He looked like the Lions captain in this game, miles better than in the Argentina game. I gave him a 9. I thought he was outstanding, one of the best games I've seen him play. Chesham, a good outing, I think 7, maybe it could have been higher, but maybe he was a little bit quieter than Itoje, but again, did a lot right. Talking of specifics in the game, Itoje put pressure on the very first line out, forcing a penalty. Then he hoovers up the ball after that, so a great start. Super close to stealing the second one, actually, and his defence into the line-out was excellent. He got on the end of some offloads early on, heavily involved in everything, and really the go-to man in the line-out. In the first half, when Finn Russell did a hold-up tackle, he ripped the ball off there to win a penalty and a 5-metre maul, which led to the first Lions try. Some good rush defence as well on 33 minutes, getting right in the face of the Reds, forcing another turnover. Maybe his calling in the line-out is something that's been suspect, as the Reds were reading a few of those line-outs, so let me know what you think there. It's certainly been a criticism that's been levelled at him before, but hard to know if you're not on the pitch. But definitely high energy, capped off by a try, getting on the end of an Aki carry and a Gibson Park snipe. Well deserved there. That took it to 12-28 and kind of put the game slightly away there. And just after that, it looked like he'd spoilt it a bit with a high tackle, but then he actually wins the line out, steals the line out from that penalty anyway. Gets an interception at the end when the Reds are building nicely, and that led to the Hugh Jones try. And he finished a real captain's display by nicking another line out with just 2 minutes to go, and he was fired up. It looked like good leadership for me from the outside, but let me know what you think. So many things I noticed from Itoje in that game there. Those were just some of the examples, so 9 out of 10 well deserved. Ollie Chesham, a very tidy first half for sure. He helped shunt over Porter with the help of Morgan, so that was good, and some beautiful soft hands on 35 minutes to help put Van der Merwe in. On 51 minutes he made his best attacking play of the game, a scything line out wide, created havoc, that's for sure, and it definitely would be interesting to see him at blindside at some point in this tour. I wonder if we'll see it very soon. Then onto the back row, and I wasn't that impressed with Tom Curry. Let me know if you think I've been harsh there, but it wasn't a great game for him. Morgan I thought was outstanding as a 9, and Conan a very decent showing, 7.5. Tom Curry started off with a missed tackle for the first red try, then a sloppy drop in contact on 30 minutes, so not a great start. I mean, there's lots of good muscular work in there as normal, but when he's out wide, he doesn't look overly quick. I mean, he shipped the ball on quite nicely, but he himself wasn't really a particular running threat. He flew up a lot in defence as the Lions were trying to get good line speed, but he was being stepped a little bit there, a bit more easy than others. And then on 63 minutes, an uncharacteristic mistake as he's first to the ruck, but slightly to the side, and actually allows a jackal on the ball, which was pretty disappointing. And again on 70 minutes, beaten on the outside with a handoff and pace. So he did lots of good work, don't get me wrong, but those were a number of things I noticed that made him look a bit vulnerable and gave him that 4.5 score. On to Jack Morgan, and I really like what I saw. So noticeable how low he goes in that tackle, and his carries were really good. On 10 minutes, he set up a first good Lions attack, then a phenomenal turnover on 14 minutes when the ball was just out of the ruck for a fraction of a second, and he launched on it. He did lose the ball in contact once on a counter-attack, but generally lots of powerful meters in the carry, epitomised by a hard rewind for a good try, the Lions' 5th try. That was good, and he really wanted that jackal, and Morgan really went for it. A sharp one on 79 minutes, ultimately leading to a really good attack. So great game for Morgan. I actually gave him a 9. Now Jack Conan had a very strong game, 7.5, maybe it could have been higher, I don't know. Did nothing wrong particularly. Big carries straight away, bumping off players, always very keen, lovely soft hands along with Chesham to set up Van der Merwe, and just busy all the time. Super solid, 7.5. If he was your test 8, I'd be very happy. Then on to the halfbacks, and Gibson Park, a nice tidy game coming back from injury. I think 7's about right there. Russell was the standout, and we'll come to him. But certainly on 20 minutes, it was a nice tidy start until one horror show rushed a clearance kick. I think it's because he moved the ball back in the ruck with his hands, and his ref said, no, you've played it, you've got to go with it. So that's something definitely to tidy up. But generally, he was quick to the ball, he was getting the ball away, he made one good half break to create a try for a toe J. Did let one restart kick bounce, I'm not sure why, because he was the only guy coming forward. He seemed to have it, then left it, so that was a bit weird. But yeah, generally a decent comeback game for him. He can improve a little bit, but he's just back from injury, so 7 I think is about right. Now Russell, so impressed with Russell once again. You know, he's gone back to back with starts and looks super sharp, attack and defence, so comfortable running this shape. And it has to be said, hats off to him and the Lions coaching, because they look so comfortable in attack. Sure, they can execute their skills a bit better sometimes, but where they're meant to be, the timing looks really good. Some lovely wraparounds, some nice long passes, one to create a try out wide. Daly as well, a nice long pass there for a try for Freeman. On 28 minutes, a lovely sweeping move wide, often a toe J line out, and right in the face, gain line threat, and they sweep the ball wide to Van der Merwe, then back to Freeman, and it leads to a penalty in the try to Porter. So it's just good attacking sets, and he makes so many good tackles as well. Tackles low nicely, takes people down, right in the face. Great stuff from Russell. I gave him a 9. Then on to the centres. I think Aki scores a bit higher than Jones. I don't know if any of these guys said I must start from this game, but they definitely had decent games. Aki hit some hard lines straight away, but then off the next big line, Aki drops a fairly straightforward one. He actually gets on the back of a Lions maul and doesn't quite score, held up, but some nice soft passes in the face. It was a decent game. Some big tackles, some big carries. Hugh Jones, some nice pop passes in the first 15 minutes, but then definitely made a few mistakes with his longer passes. Did nail one right at the end though. On 65 minutes he gets his try, a bit of a speculative charge down to be fair, but it falls into his hands and he shows enough pace to finish from about 40 metres. So decent showing, not perfect. I think 6 and 7 about right for me. Then finally into the pack 3, and Van der Merwe. Such an interesting game from Van der Merwe, because I think it epitomises what he's about. Some awful defending, but then when the ball's in hand, he's an absolute beast. So on 22 minutes, True schoolboy stuff, dealing with an easy defensive crossfield kick, and he just sticks one hand out, doesn't get the flight right at all, and that kind of is his problem sometimes, some of that awareness. And literally straight after that, the Reds realised he was weak there, prodded the kick through, he waited for it to come to him rather than go towards it, and he gives away a try to Fluke. So that was a real problem, 2 massive defensive errors, but ball in hand, he was absolutely amazing. So I don't really know what to rate him, but those defensive errors were so bad, I think it goes down to a 5, but let me know if his attacking prowess pulls it up. I think Tommy Freeman gets a really good 8. It was a good game for him. He is just so busy. Takes the first high ball, which is great. Actually loses the ball after that. He finishes off his try, which was probably a fairly straightforward overlap, but still good to get a try, but just super busy, popping up in midfield, which is brilliant. Nearly stretches over for another try. Lots of carries out wide as well. Maybe not clean breaks, but making half breaks. And then he gets his best finish of the day on 61 minutes for a second try. Now, Elliot Daly got a second start because Hugo Keenan was ill, and it was another really good performance. There was one big mistake where he had a chance to set up a try on 15 minutes, but kind of switches to no one. But apart from that, very good. Slick wide ball to Freeman for the first try. Really difficult mark taken on 32 minutes. Massive boot into space on 58 minutes, and Freeman hairs up to force another penalty. It was looking like a really good all-round game until he whacked his forearm and he looked in a lot of pain and very despondent. I wonder if that's an arm break, a fracture, and he's out of the series. We will see. He's kind of done his job really with Keenan and Kinghorn out. He's played 2 games at 15 and done very well. Maybe they'll just come in and take over. He's going to be disappointed, but he's had 2 excellent games for the Lions. And then let's talk about the subs, because obviously they had less time, but they definitely had an impact. But I think the Reds were fading as well. But Cowan Dickey, he came on with a lot of purpose, as did Genge, as did Finn Smith and Mitchell. I think they created the most impact. So Cowan Dickey, we wanted to see him hit his men in the line out, and he did. One really good ball to the back later on. Genge and Beelum came on and monstered the first scrum. I think the replacement props though for the Reds weren't quite as good, but that set up Morgan's try. Ryan I didn't see a lot of, to be honest, didn't make a massive impact. The interesting thing for Ben Earl was, because Ringrose had to go onto the wing, they used Earl at centre, and he looked okay, to be honest. Hit the ball up really nicely once, but just very useful to have a back row who can cover centre, which could be one thing that gets him into a test spot. We'll see, because I do think he's on the fringe. The pair of Mitchell and Finn Smith came on together because Northampton teammates on at the same time seemed to make sense, and it was still quick ball. They were still running the shapes very nicely. Finn Smith is very much a systems player, and that is a positive there. One brilliant pass right in the face for the final try, a couple of nice kicks to touch, so he had a decent cameo. And Mitchell the same, very nippy, and Ringrose, his main involvement was to score that try at the end, so a nice way to finish. And then finally, how does that affect the pecking order? Well, not a lot, I don't think, actually. No one jumps ahead of Sheehan in the hooker stakes. I think it's very close between Kelleher and Cowan Dickey. I think Genge is still ahead of Porter at loosehead. Not sure what to do at tight head. Let me know there. I've actually changed Furlong above. Atoje, with that mammoth performance, stays top of the second rows, and he probably would be anyway because he's a captain, but great to back that one up with McCarthy and Chesham just below. I don't think Ryan made any impact there. Blindside is really up in the air. I think Curry drops right down in my pecking order because that's 2 fairly lacklustre performances from him. I think just because of recency, Morgan pops ahead of Van der Fleer, but that's a very close race, but it was a good game for Morgan. And looking at it, because Ben Earl hadn't come on 8 in that game and he wasn't amazing against Argentina, I think Pollock pops above him just in my mind there. And the rest kind of staying as they are, although I've swapped Tupelutu above Aki because I don't think Aki did quite enough in that game. Ringrose stays above Jones. Freeman had an excellent game. I think him, Lowe and Hansen very, very close, and Van der Merwe definitely staying bottom of the specialist wingers. And with Daly out, Keenan and Kinghorn I think are the picks for the starting 15. So let me know what you think of all my player ratings. I've tried to give as many reasons as possible, backed up by what happened in the game, but I would love to know your thoughts down below. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. It would really help, and I'll catch you next time.